the same.
I'm not sure what that means. So Ronnie's not going to be with us today. We weren't able to round him up. I think he had some vacation Bible school assignments.
Something going on summer for kids out for summer or something.
We'll try to make it without him, but Ronnie was sort of our expert on today's topic, old cars. I see you made us a memo here.
Well, Ronnie is, being the oldest brother, he is more familiar with the old cars than we are.
Well, not necessarily. I wouldn't necessarily say that.
But he was always...
Although he was our first driver.
He was like the collector of hot cars. He loved those. He had that... what was that? Malibu? Not Malibu. What was it he had? Impala? Monte Carlo.
He had a Monte Carlo.
He had that Monte Carlo and the Roadrunner and the GTO.
Yeah, but Ronnie's first car as a married man. Now, after he got married, he got a little Volkswagen Bug.
Well, that was because he got married.
Because he got married. About drove him crazy.
He was influenced by the matrimonial bliss of his wife.
Well, Ronnie left home first. He got out of high school first, and that was in 1963. And as soon as he could afford a car payment, he got him a car. And he was our first driver. Ronnie turned 16 first. I was 2 years behind him.
Yeah.
So, but that was the golden age of cars. As far
that's
what
we're going to talk about. It's why was that the golden age?
Well, I don't. Are we saying that just because that's when we experienced cars, or was it actually the golden age of cars?
That's the question.
That's the question we're going to talk about. Okay.
Now, the first question I got on here, you can scan through the bullet points there I've got for our discussion. But the first thing I put down on here was were the cars in the old days better? Were they better?
Actually, I think they were worse.
In many
respects. Now, we went through, in the car, you may not have intended to go into this, but, after World War II, America dominated manufacturing and everything, particularly in cars. Detroit, the design of cars, that was our golden age of just a lot of great car designs and manufacturing. But by the 70s, after World War II, we had destroyed the Japanese and the Germans, and but we helped them, and they built back up, and they became great manufacturers. In fact, the man who taught the Japanese how to manufacture was an American by the name of John Deming, and the highest manufacturing award in Japan is the Deming Award, who was an American. But they kicked our butts. With the Toyotas, and they just had higher quality cars. I had a 73 Ford one time, and it just fell apart. It was just a terrible car. So I think quality-wise, foreign countries, particularly Japanese, kicked our butts in manufacturing, but the 50s and 60s, I think we dominated. To me, that was the golden age.
Do you remember taking riding classes in high school and college?
Riding classes?
Riding classes.
Like riding with... Yeah.
Creative writing.
I never took any creative writing classes in school.
Well, they taught us in writing classes that you're supposed to summarize your whole subject in the first paragraph. You summarize it, and then you start in details after that. Mm-hmm. Well, what you just got through saying summarized our whole podcast.
Is that right?
Yeah, in a way.
Is that a good thing, or did I do bad?
Well, no, it gave me kind of a perspective of what our flow has to be here.
Okay. Well, let's go with it then from there.
Certainly the cars of the 50s and 60s with the big V8 engines, they were more powerful and faster, weren't they?
They were faster. They were very powerful. Yeah. But they were not as efficient.
They were very heavy.
They were big, heavy cars. They were made better because they were made of metal. Most of the cars today are made of some kind of plastic, to make them lighter. And what that came of was the gas prices. Gas prices dictated that back in the early 70s. That's when we started having the Arab oil embargo, and gas started to go go up sky high.
So it started making them more aerodynamic,
More
for fuel efficiency,
more aerodynamic
and lighter in weight.
and lighter in weight for fuel efficiency. The aerodynamic, what's the word? That became the priority to make it more fuel efficient. So as they made cars more aerodynamic, you'll notice today that when you drive down the highway and look around, it's very difficult to tell a Mercedes from a Chevrolet. All the cars look the same because they all employ a factual aerodynamic design.
Let's go to that next question.
Where used to, they just designed it.
Were they nicer looking then? Were the cars more pleasing to the eye?
I think so.
The old cars.
I think so. Yeah.
I know you mentioned a few minutes ago about the oncoming, the golden years of the automobile. Went through this period of change design-wise, where they were emulating rocket ships, and that was intentional. They did that because of the space race, and the cars started having fins on the back, and that was when the fins started on the Cadillac.
You think that was more a design thing, or was that really had anything to do? Like the big Cadillacs and the
they were
DeSotos.
It was a design thing to sell them because people were interested in the space race. They wanted them to look like rocket ships.
Okay, I never thought about that. You think that's why that?
Came from? I know that just from studying history and doing research on.
But
cars.
it was really not. It was really not an aerodynamic design.
No, it was just
impeded, if anything.
It made them look
big old fins.
It made them look more speedy with them fins. Come on.
Okay. Well, looking back, I think cumbersome to me now, but at the time, maybe you're right.
Yeah, you look at one of them old cars now, and you can hardly fit it in 2 parking spaces now. It's so huge. If you see one that's been restored,
they're huge. Yeah.
They're huge. They're long.
Very long.
In Europe, even back then, when I was on my mission in the early 70s, the name for American cars, those big American cars, was called a Strassenkreuz. A Strassenkreuz it's so big it crosses the street. It goes across the whole street. So Strassenkreuz, they called them, because even in back then in those days, they didn't develop cars like America did. They developed cars from the onset for fuel efficiency. They were smaller, all looked plain like our cars do today. So when they looked at those American manufactured cars in the 50s and 60s, all they saw was a big giant Strassenkreuz. That was like a demeaning term for the American car.
And nobody cared how much gas you put in it because gas was cheap.
Exactly.
It didn't really matter.
Well, what about what outside influences affected the change of car design over the years between the 50s and today?
Well, gas dictated that. The energy crisis of the early 70s, I think that dictated the end of classic design. They started designing for fuel efficiency and energy.
Well, couldn't they? I mean, did it have to mean that they all looked like? You remember?
Well, it kind of did dictate that because, airplanes all basically look the same, right? Because it's an aerodynamic design. I mean, what cuts through the wind? Because as you drive down the road, you get wind resistance, and what can cut through that wind with the least amount of horsepower? How much power does it take to push against that wind force?
Yeah, but from the 70s on, like 70s, 80s, and 90s, some of those cars are like the ugliest designs in the world. They were trying to push that sleek look, but all they were doing was making them ugly looking.
Well, they had to come back.
Big turds,
They had to kind of come back, I think, and say, well, look, we've got to please the people as well. You got to make something pretty.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you can't just market the car on its efficiency. It has to be beauty. It has to be aesthetic as well. So the cars today are pretty. They're just not as pretty as every year back in the 50s, 60s, every year it was a big whoop-de-doo on television, this new design, and you could drive down the road and you could spot them. And even today, us old-timers, we can spot a 55 Chevy from a 56 Chevy.
Right.
Or a 57 Chevy. They had a unique design each and every year. You say,
right,
that's 57 Chevy. There's no mistaking it. Today, to try to differentiate between a 2015 Chevy and a 2025 Chevy? Very hard.
For instance, a good example is this truck I'm driving right now. It's a 2019 Frontier, Nissan Frontier. They didn't change the design of that vehicle for 7 years. It was the very same design. I can go onto a car lot and find parts because there's so many of them from broken down trucks over a 7-year period. They didn't change them. Now, a lot of other companies change them radically, pretty much from year to year to make them look more pleasing or for sales reasons or something. But that's a truck. That's not a car. But and there was competition between people when they mentally, I guess, about is their 56 Chevy prettier than his 57 Chevy, or 55 Chevy with certain features. Is that more sleek, more, than the 58 or whatever,
Lots of it was a matter of opinion, and a lot of it goes back to of how popular that car was at that time. The 57 Chevrolet hit big. It was a Bel Air. The 57 Bel Air had the fins, and it was a very popular car.
That's the fins, like
at that time.
57 on both sides. Which one had the fins that came flat on the back and curled out like that? Was
that was more in the 59, 58, okay. 59, and Ford went to that too, the flat fin.
Okay.
That went flat. 57, 58, 59 Fords had that flat fin. It ended about 57. But then the 55, 54, and 55, Ford and Chevy were more of a boxy look.
Yeah. Well, when they started making, both of them, Chevy and Ford, started making the sports cars, the little sports cars. Ford had Thunderbird, Chevy had the Corvettes.
Right.
And they were smaller, sportier looking, but they still maintained a sleek jet look about them.
Exactly.
Now, the Thunderbird has changed radically over the years.
Thunderbird went big. It started out as a little sporty,
it's a big
sporty car back in early to mid 50s. But then the Thunderbird turned into a big car, and it turned into not a sports speedy car, but a family kind of car.
Right.
It was just another big old box car.
Well, back then in the 50s, 60s, 70s, in that era, the golden age of cars, what differentiated a family vehicle over a luxury vehicle?
Well, the station wagon primarily. You had a lot of station wagons back in those days, and that was sort of the classic family car. That's what you saw.
Equivalent to the SUV today, kind of.
Maybe so. Yeah, probably equivalent to the SUV was the station wagon. You could turn all the kids loose in the back, and they could romp and turn flips and play in the back of the car. No seatbelts in those days, remember?
Yeah. Well, if you told a 25-year-old...
Or you could haul stuff in the back of a station wagon.
If we didn't have the internet to show us pictures of all those old cars, if you pulled a 25-year-old aside and said, would you like to have my old station wagon? They don't have a clue what it looks like or what it is.
They wouldn't have a clue.
Station,
what is a station
station wagon? What does that mean?
It had a tailgate on it, like a wagon.
Right.
You lifted the back tailgate, and it was a long car, and it was, it was for families.
Headroom. It had headroom all the way back.
Yeah.
It didn't have a trunk in the back.
And the old cars had also the straight seats. Almost all the cars just had a straight seat, so you could put 3 or 4 or 5 people in the front seat.
Yeah, the bench seats.
Later, they began making the bucket seats.
Yeah.
And only 2 people fit in the front, unless somebody was going to sit up on top of the console.
Now, those old cars with the bench seats were perfect for dating at the drive-in, because you can get your girl over there up beside you.
You get to her.
Yeah.
That's right.
That bench seat. You didn't have that stick shift and them 2 seats separated in the way.
That's right. They were also good for long distance traveling. If you got tired and you needed to pull over the side of the road and take a quick nap, you could just drop down under the steering wheel there on the seat and take you a nap. Mm-hmm. Cars now, you can't do that.
Yeah, well, besides you get arrested if you pull over.
You could probably get arrested as well. They were in many ways more practical back in the day.
Well, let's talk about that old 73 Ford, you said
It
you
was 73 Ford. Yeah, what was that? It wasn't a Fairlane. I don't remember what kind of Ford it was. It was
Galaxy?
It was a Galaxy. Yeah, maybe a Galaxy. It was a boxy car. Quality-wise, it was. Engine blew up at 50,000 miles. I mean, cars today will last 200,000-300,000 miles. Engine didn't hold up. The top of the head thing came unglued and it just started sagging down like a parachute. And my seat that I was sitting in, the springs started breaking, and it was like I was sitting in a hole after a while. I never could get that right, and it just fell apart.
Was it an LTD?
LTD. That's what it was. It was an LTD.
When Mom and Daddy had that LTD back when I was in high school, they would drive up to Nokomis to visit Mama and Papa. And Shannon would get a kick out of this. She listens. But Ray Hall was always there. And Ray could irritate Daddy in a second,
Yeah.
So Daddy we'd get out of the car, and Daddy was proud of his nice new LTD. And old Ray would lean over. He said, "Bud, you know what that means, don't you? That LTD, that's a Lincoln trim down." And Daddy would get so mad.
Is that what it meant, really?
I don't think so. It was just, one of those invented acronyms, Lincoln trim.
It was a sorry car. I had that when my daughters were first starting to drive, and they were going to town, and they hated that car because they said all the other kids thought they were Mennonites, because a lot of the Mennonites drove the Mennonites drove a simple car.
Oh, yeah.
It was part of their paradigm. And they drove a lot of those Ford LTDs. I don't know how they liked them. But anyway, the girls had the idea. That was the day when they had the Farrah Fawcett hair. And they thought people were... And I told them, I don't think anybody's going to mistake you for a Mennonite with that hair.
Well, the LTD was kind of the luxury version of the Ford, if I remember right. It was a little bit higher than...
It was a nice car. Yeah, I thought it was when I bought it. It just didn't hold up. But my point was how the Japanese kicked our butts during the 70s with cars.
Yeah.
And they forced manufacturers in America to start making competition. Forced American manufacturers to make a better car. Now, back in those days, also, we had things... You remember the old days when you could work on your own car? There were no computers on the cars at all. It was all mechanical. And you had to change your plugs and points.
Distributor cap.
It had a distributor cap with a wire. And you could do that. You could get out there and work on that stuff.
And if it broke down, you could stop at any hardware store anywhere and buy the part and fix it.
You could find the parts, yeah. It was all pretty much generic. You had to set your points with a little tool.
Exactly.
And change your plugs. But they didn't last. You had to just keep on. You had to change your oil about every 2,000 or 3,000 miles. They didn't have all the synthetic oils we have today. And so you had to change the oil more often. The oils weren't as good.
Well, when I got home from my mission in late 71 and in early 72, Ronnie helped me. He co-wrote for me to get a car, my first car, and I got a little 73 bright orange Nova, Chevy Nova, a little sporty looking.
Yeah, I remember that.
That was a V8 engine in it. Now that car is like highly sought after.
That was a V8 engine in there?
Yeah. I drove it all the way to Utah to get married. We drove it all the way, and then to California to visit you that time.
Okay. You were driving that, okay.
Yeah. But that car was... Man, it was kind of sporty, and but we traded it. Here's the thing I was going to talk about. We when I started having kids, I traded that car for a more practical Impala.
Station wagon.
No,
not a station wagon.
It was kind of like a station wagon. It was an Impala.
Okay.
Again, it had more space and all, and that Impala, it wasn't many years, and the water, those seals that would rust out in the engine block, they started rusting out. They're called drain plugs, freeze plugs. Freeze plugs would start rusting out. I'd get one rusted out, and I'd have to find somebody that could clean it out, put another freeze plug in. A couple of years later, there was another one that would rust out, and it was something to do with the corrosive factor of the antifreeze that I was using.
Okay.
But that was a real pain.
Yeah, well, as the car designs and the car quality has changed, the products like oil and antifreeze have improved as well. that make cars last longer.
We didn't have synthetic oil then.
We didn't have synthetic oil back in the day. Synthetic oil is much better as far as lubricating the parts and the car not wearing out. It was 50,000 miles was not uncommon for a car engine to go at 50,000. So they didn't last near as long back then. But in terms of the body, you see people still driving around these restored old cars because those bodies were made of metal. They were heavier, which used more gas, of course. But they can be rejuvenated, where these plastics today, you just have to build a new car. Everything is designed today to be replaced. If you take your car in, they don't really fix anything anymore. They just get a whole new part.
That's why the total one in a heartbeat, a car will be totaled.
A good example is my tiller, which I was going to ask you to come over and help me work on it, because it's got a little screw that I couldn't get tight on the fuel bowl. I mentioned that to you. Well, I called a repairman yesterday down in Pensacola, and he said, you can't get a replacement screw for that. He said it screws up into the part that you screw into is part of the carburetor. You have to replace the entire carburetor.
Oh, my.
So it looks like that's what I'm going to have to do, is to replace the whole carburetor. And that's the way everything is nowadays. Wherever it ends, the ending point, you got to get that whole part.
Well, if they were so fuel greedy and they were so heavy and cumbersome and hard to repair and wore out and all that, why is there such an infatuation with restoring them? Why are we obsessed? You see that everywhere now on TV. There's people that specialize in restoring these old cars.
Just sentiment, I think.
You think that's the only reason?
Just sentiment, yeah, for the past. A sentiment for the past. I mean, we didn't know any different at the time. Lots of people be out in the backyard under the shade tree working on their old cars. That was like a pleasurable pursuit. Now, I never got much pleasure out of it, but a lot of people do, out of mechanics. You could lift the hood and work on your old car. You could change the shocks and go up underneath the hood and, change stuff out. Your generator, your water, what do you call it? The water pump used to go out a lot, but bearings would go out in it. But you could fix it. Nowadays, there's no fixing to it. It's too complicated. It requires toolery and different things. You have to go back to the factory or be scrapped or whatever. They just build a new one.
Well,
it's kind of sad in a way, but
let me ask you this question: If you were in a wreck with a big truck, would you want to be in one of these modern Lexus cars, or would you want to be in one of them old Buicks or Cadillacs?
I'd rather be in an old Buick. Yeah, but oddly enough, and this is kind of strange. The cars were built, all the V8s, even when you didn't need a V8. Nowadays they build them with these turbocharged engines. Yeah. So they can build a little bitty engine that can go 10,000 miles an hour, like a rocket, and in 10 seconds. They're under high compression. They're high compression engines. The old days they just built raw horsepower, and so people drove fast. We knew a lot of people that killed themselves in cars from driving fast. And back in those days, we didn't drive on big 4-lane superhighways either. We didn't have them. We drove on 2-lane state roads or little county roads. And a lot of people would drive down those little roads 100 miles an hour plus. I did it,
And on 2-lane highways, the main highways before the interstate, a 2-lane highway was the main highway.
And that was the main highway.
You went around somebody slower, you took your life in your hands passing.
That's right. if you drove from Alabama to New York or to California, you'd do it on 2-lane highway.
Yeah.
That's what we had.
So to pass somebody, it was a real challenge.
That's right.
It was a skill.
So we had a lot more accidents. I had a lot of friends got killed or maimed in different ways from car accidents, especially as Joe Pesci would say, the Utes. Us Utes would like to drive. We always liked speed, and so we drove fast in those cars. As a typical thing. I don't think people drive as fast today. Kids, old people naturally slow down.
Well, you
naturally slow down, but I don't think there's as much danger when you put your 16-year-old in your car that he's going to go out and drive at 100 miles an hour today as it was in our day. All the kids do. We got out on these country roads and raced and
I know.
did all kinds of crazy things.
Yeah, that's true.
And so power was very important. Who could drive, had the fastest car? We would try to see how fast we could go around a curve. Sometimes we made it.
The drag strip phenomenon, which allowed everyday people to come in and drag race.
You could bring your car down the drag race, and drag race with it. Speed was a big thing, more important to us back then.
Well, getting back to that thing you talked about a while ago about the influence of the Japanese over the car manufacturing, they've surpassed us. Mm-hmm. I remember in, what year was it that Al moved to Bratt? In 1980? Something like that.
In the 80s, I think
it was early 80s because that's when I got out of school and came back to Bratt. He had a Honda he which was the smallest car I ever saw. It was just a small, compact little car that Al had brought from New York, and he was driving that around, and it was a Honda, and that was the typical Honda that was made at that time. Look where Honda is now. Honda.
They're a big car now. Big SUVs.
Doesn't Honda make Lexus?
Do they? Oh, I didn't know.
I don't know for sure, but they're branching out. They have the big, nice cars. Honda makes good cars. But all car manufacturers, I guess, have to start out small. But that's just how far Japanese have come in the quality.
Japanese were post World War II. They were associated with junk products.
Exactly.
If it was made in Japan, it was a junk product.
But that Deming guy went over and helped show
John Deming, went over and showed them how to manufacture. He was a manufacturing genius in America before World War II, but the Americans wouldn't listen to him. They kind of threw him out, and then he was rediscovered after World War II. And then after the Americans realized what had happened, that an American had actually gone over and showed the Japanese how to manufacture, then he became popular in America. And he was an old man in his 90s, and he was like very popular with Ford, and all the big motor companies brought him in to teach their engineers how to manufacture.
You were gone, but maybe you were around part of the time when Travis came home from Vietnam.
I remember, yeah.
And he went and paid cash for a dark blue Corvette, 427 engine Corvette.
427, and that was a fiberglass body.
And he left it at our house, and I drove it. He said, you can drive it on a date if you want to. Travis wasn't particular about that. But I drove it off on dates and stuff. Man, I've never driven anything that fast. And I'd get on that three-mile bridge, and there wasn't much traffic on it. Man, I'd open it up. I was like 100, 120 across that bridge in that little Vet. And if I'd hit a wind pocket or anything, I would have just been all over the place. But it was, I've never felt anything that powerful. Now, Ronnie's GTO was close. I drove that around. Did you ever drive his GTO?
I drove it. Yeah, I drove it one time from South Carolina back to home.
Oh, yeah, when you took him back over there? Okay.
No, I don't remember the circumstance, but he wanted me to bring it before he came with one of his buddies.
Yeah.
Later picked it up, but I drove it, and it was a hot little car. It was peppy, but nothing like that Corvette. Now, my son, Steve, he has two Corvettes. He has an old classic, and he has a new one, a fairly new one. And he brought it down here and took me for a little spin. And that thing will scare you to death still. I mean, It is so powerful. Of course, he was a highway patrolman, and he's a professional driver. But I wouldn't nearly about drive one as fast as he does.
Well, guess what?
I wouldn't even attempt it.
We're at the end of our time.
Oh, already?
Yeah.
Well, suffice it to say that these old cars are a historical testament to what has developed in America with cars.
They have a place in the history of America. Them. I mean, that's part of American history that developed with that car.
I love these old car shows. You see a lot of them. I love going to them and looking at them and remembering. But remember, before that, we didn't even touch on this. The early history, the old Model A and Model T, and there's a bunch of those.
No, I was talking about the old classic
we talked
car.
about. Yeah,
that's what I was talking about.
During our time, I think that was really the heyday of the cars, the time that we've talked about.
Yeah. Well, let's call it a day, and maybe we can get Ronnie on for next one.
Okay, we left a lot to talk about here on cars.
Well,
I
we
feel like
did.
we're just getting started.
Well, I'll think up another topic that will include this subject.
We'll bring some more of it in.
All right, we'll see y'all later.
All right. That's it.